Good afternoon, everyone. The topic for today's class is electric field lines and electric flux. So first we will be dealing up with the electric field lines, and then based on the knowledge of this electric field lines, we will be going through to discuss that what is electric flux. And both of these topics will be very much relevant to the topics that we will be learning later on in this chapter, that is the Gauss law. So in order to understand Gauss law, it is very important to go through the electric field lines and the electric flux. So let's start. The electric field lines, they are also known as electric lines of force. So these are the imaginary lines. They may be straight or curved paths along which a unit positive charge is supposed to move when it is free to do so in an electric field. So the electric field lines, they are not actually practically existing somewhere, but they are the imaginary lines along which the charge will move when we place that charge in the given electric field. So in other words, we can say this thing that the electric field lines are the imaginary lines which gives the direction as well as the strength of the electric field. So either of these two definitions, anyone you can write. So these lines are not practically existing, but they represent the real situation. If you place a charge in an electric field line, in an electric field, then the charge will move along with the straight or curved paths, and those paths are known as the electric field line. So you can see either it can be a straight line or it can be a curved path depending on the configuration of charge. So these are the electric line of force, or they are also known as the electric field lines. So you can see this thing that if a charge is placed over here, it will be moving along this path, and if a charge is placed over here, it will be moving along this path. So these are the electric field lines. Those which are marked in red, they are the electric field lines. Now we need to learn about the electric field lines, that how these electric field lines look like when we are talking about a single charge or a combination of charges. So first of all, the very simplest case is the electric field lines due to a point charge. So let's see this thing that we are having a point charge and Q, and this Q is greater than 0. It means it is positive charge. If it is less than 0, it is negative charge. So the electric field lines, they will come out from the positive charge like this. And I have represented this electric field line with the help of the vectors. So the length of this arrow, it shows the magnitude of the vector. So as you move towards the positive charge, the length of the arrow is increasing. And if you move away from the positive charge, the length of the arrow is decreasing. It means this thing that the electric field is decreasing when you move away from the charge. So either you can represent the electric field line say like this, or in a simpler manner, you can represent the electric field line like this. So this is the representation of electric field line without the using of vectors. Just we have specified the direction. So it is an easy way to draw the electric field lines. We will be following this way only, the second one. These are the electric field lines in the vector notation for the negative charge. When Q is less than 0, the electric field lines will be coming towards the negative charge, and for the positive charge, they are moving out from it. We will be following this notation to represent the electric field line. So this is the representation of electric field in terms of field vectors. The size of the arrow, it represents the strength of the electric field. You can see this thing that as you move towards the towards the charge, the length of the arrow is long. So when the length is long, it means the electric field is more. It represents the strength of the electric field. When you move away from the charge, there the length of the arrow is very less. So this is the vector notation representation that we are not going to follow. We will be following the simpler one. Just we will be drawing the electric fields with the help of the arrows, whether they are pointing inwards or outwards, depending on the nature of the charge. So for the charge Q greater than 0, the electric field lines will be moving out of the charge. And for the charge Q, which is less than 0, that is negative charge, the electric field lines are moving towards the charge. So it is a simpler notation, representation of the electric field in terms of field lines only. We are not using the vector lines, and this is the easy way of drawing That's why we will be following the second one. In the next topics to come, we will be using this one. Now, what will be the shape of the electric field for two equal and opposite charges? What will be the electric field lines look like in the case of a dipole? So you can see this thing that this is a positive charge and it is a negative charge, and the electric field lines will come out from the positive charge and they will move towards the negative charge. See, like this, they will be moving. So the electric field lines, they are coming from the positive charge and moving towards the negative charge. They will always be coming out from the positive charge and terminating at the negative charge. Please keep this thing in mind, that the electric field lines will always come out from the positive charge and they will terminate at the negative charge. So this is how the electric field lines look like for a dipole or for two equal and opposite charges. Now we need to draw the electric field lines for different charge configuration. See, if the electric field lines for two equal and like charges, say for example, they are having both positive charges, then what will happen? So we have taken one charge over here as a positive charge, another charge over here as a positive charge. They both are having the same sign. So the electric field lines, they will look like this. They will be moving out of the positive charge. And again, from this positive charge, they will be moving out. So we are having somewhere in between where no electric field lines exist. And this is because of the repulsion of these two positive charges. And in between this positive and negative charges, the electric field lines do exist, and in a profound manner. Why so? Because they are showing the attraction between these two charges. You can see it. What your job is, you people should be knowing how to draw these electric field lines for different charge configurations. One for the point charge, whether the point charge is positive or negative. If it is positive, they are moving out of it. If it is negative, they are coming towards it. Again, for the dipole, that in the case of dipole, they will be moving out from the positive charge and going towards the negative charge. And in the case of two equal and like charges, they will be moving away from the charges, and there lies some area in between. There is no electric field exists. Moving further, we need to find out this thing, that how the electric field lines look like for a uniform field. So for a uniform field, the electric field lines will be straight lines which are equidistant from each other. So which are equidistant from each other. See this is an electric field line, and they are parallel lines. For the uniform field, they will be parallel and they are equally spaced. They are having same distance between them. And we all know this thing, that the electric field lines, they are always moving from positive charge towards the negative charge. For a uniform electric field, the electric field lines look like this. They will be equispaced, having equal space in between them, and they are parallel to each other. Now we people should be learning some of the properties of the electric field lines, and these properties will help us to derive various formulas and concepts later on in this chapter. So the first property of the electric field lines, it says that these are the imaginary lines. They are not actually visible, but we have drawn it for our convenience. These are the imaginary lines which represent the real situation. Secondly, a unit positive charge, if it is placed in an electric field, it will follow the path along the field line if it is free to do so. So if I place a charge over here of 1 coulomb over here, it will move along this line. See this thing? 1 coulomb charge, it is moving along this line only. So the unit positive charge will follow the path of the electric field line if it is free to do so. Again, you can see it. The charge is moving along this line only. The third property, it says that the electric field lines will come out from the positive charge and they will terminate onto a negative charge. So they will always emanate out from a positive charge and they will terminate on a negative charge. That we have seen in the case of an electric dipole. The electric field lines are coming out from the positive charge and they are going towards the negative charge. Now, the next property, it says, this is very important property and I want every one of you to pay attention on this one. that the tangent on an electric field line, it gives the direction of the electric field at that point. So if we draw a tangent to an electric field line, see this is my curved electric field line, and if on any point I want to find the direction of the electric field, I need to draw a tangent on that point. So you can see it. So this is my point of interest at point P. I need to find the electric field direction. The direction of electric field at point P can be obtained by drawing a tangent to this electric field line, that is the curved one, at point P. So it looks like this. This is a tangent. If I draw a tangent on this point P, it will look like this. So the direction of electric field at point P will be along the tangent. Always remember this thing, that if we need to find the direction of electric field on any point on the electric field line, we will be drawing a tangent to the electric field line at that point. I'm repeating it again, that if we need to find the direction of the electric field at any point on the electric field line, I will be drawing a tangent on that point that is lying on the electric field line, and the direction of this tangent will give me the direction of the electric field at that point. So the direction of electric field at point P will be given by this tangent that is shown by the dotted line. Again, this property is really very important, and please pay attention to it. No two electric field lines can intersect each other. There is not a possibility that two electric field lines can intersect each other. They will never intersect each other. Why so? Because if they intersect each other, that at the point of intersection, so this is, say, we will be proving this thing with the help of contradiction. So we will assume this thing that two electric field lines, they are intersecting each other, and then we prove this thing that it cannot possible. Why so? Because if two electric field lines, if they intersect each other, what happens that at the point of intersection, so this is the point of intersection, if I need to find the electric field direction at this point of intersection, what I will be doing, I'll be drawing a tangent to the electric field line at this point. So this tangent will be along this direction. Also, the tangent can be drawn at this point along this direction, because they are having two electric field lines. So both can be having tangents like this. So I can be drawing that tangent like this. One tangent is along this line, that is the curved one, this, and another tangent is along this electric field line, that is E1. So both of these E1 and E2 are the tangents to the electric field lines at a given point, this at the point of intersection of these two lines. But if they are having two directions, this is not possible. An electric field cannot have two directions. It can only be having one direction. So that's why two electric field lines cannot intersect each other. I'm repeating it again. Two electric field lines, they cannot intersect each other. Why so? Because if they intersect at the point of intersection, there lies two directions of the electric field, because two tangents can be drawn at that point of intersection, and this is not possible at all for an electric field to have two directions at a given point. It can be having only one direction. So that's why two electric field lines can never intersect each other. This electric line of force is that another name for electric field lines only. So you can be using these two names interchangeably. Either use electric lines of force or can write electric field lines. All right. Moving towards the next property. So this is not possible. Never it is possible for an electric field lines to intersect each other. Moving towards the next property. When the electric field lines are crowded, this means that the strength of the electric field is high. Or you can say that the strength of the electric field is very strong. And if the electric field lines are partially apart and they are not very crowded or spread out, then we can say this thing that the the strength of the electric field is weaker. You can see the capital Q, the electric field lines are very crowded. So we can say that then the field, because of this capital Q charge, is stronger in comparison to the field because of this small q charge. Because the electric field lines, due to the small q charge, they are spread out. You can see this thing. So if the electric field lines are denser, then the electric field strength is very much stronger. If they are spread apart, then the electric field is weaker. The next property says that the electric lines of forces or the electric field lines, they are perpendicular to the surface of a body, whether the surface is positively or negatively charged. So say this is my surface. These are the electric field lines, the positively charged surface. So electric field lines will come out from the positive charge in this direction and in this direction. The positively charged surface, the electric field lines will always come out from it. So this electric field line is always perpendicular to the surface. You can see this thing, that the angle that I'll be taking, this angle is 90 degrees. You can see this angle is 90 degrees. All right. Similarly, this angle is again 90 degrees, because the electric field line is always perpendicular to the surface from which it is coming out or it is going towards. If it is a negatively charged surface, the electric field lines must be going towards it. Similar is the case for this surface. If we take an irregular surface, then also the electric field lines will look like this. So they are also, here also I am having perpendicular. These electric field lines are always perpendicular to the surface from which they are coming out or going inside. Please keep this thing in mind. They are always perpendicular to the surface from which they are coming. See this thing, they are perpendicular to the surface. They are always perpendicular to the surface from which they are coming out. If this surface would be negatively charged, then the electric field lines will be going towards the surface. So it's a very important property of the electric field lines that they are always perpendicular to the surface from which they are coming out or going towards. Now, moving towards the next thing. Property 8. The number of field lines crossing a unit cross section, passing through a unit cross sectional area are, okay, someone has asked me this thing that I should be explaining property number 7 again. So please, I'll be explaining it again. See this thing, the electric field lines are perpendicular to the surface from which it is coming out. So this is my surface. You can see it's having a purple color boundary and it's a positively charged surface. The electric field will come out. So the angle which it makes with the surface will always be 90 degrees. It will always be 90 degrees. Here also it is 90 degrees, like this. Here also it is 90 degrees. So please keep this thing in mind, that electric field lines will always be perpendicular to the surface from which they are coming out or going inside. If the surface is negatively charged, then the electric field lines will be going inside it. All right. So I do hope that I should be moving towards the next part. All right. Now, moving towards the next property, the number of electric field lines crossing an area perpendicular to the field is directly proportional to the magnitude of the intensity of the electric field. So it means the number of electric field lines per unit area is directly proportional to the strength of the electric field. So this is the property number 8. How many number of electric field lines they are crossing a unit section area is directly proportional to the strength of the electric field. If more number of electric field lines are crossing a unit area, it means the strength of the electric field is more. If less number of electric field lines are crossing a unit section area, it means the strength of the electric field is less. Now, property number 9, it says this thing, that electric field lines cannot pass through a conductor. Hence, the interior of a conductor is always free from the influence of the electric field lines. So say this thing, I'm having positive charge over here. The electric field lines will always move from the positive charge towards the negative charge. So they will come out from a positive charge. So we are having a hollow conductor over here. So what will happen? The electric field lines, they cannot pass through this hollow conductor. They can never pass through a conductor. Why so? That we'll be discussing when we'll be discussing the polarization later on in chapter 2. So then we'll be discussing that why they cannot pass through a conductor. Meanwhile, the people just remember this thing, that the electric field lines, they cannot pass through a conductor. See this thing? This is my hollow conductor. It's not having any electric field lines. All right. So the electric field lines, they will be originating from this positive charge. And because of the presence of this positive charge, this conductor will be having some negative charge over here. So the electric field lines will move from the positive charge and towards the negative charge. Because of the presence of this negative charge or the negative side of the electric field, there will be some positive charge induced in the conductor, and the electric field lines will be moving like this from the positive charge towards the negative charge, but they cannot pass through the hollow conductor. Please remember this thing, that electric field lines never exist inside a conductor. They are, so the conductor is very much free. That's why it is said that when it is lightning, it is better to be inside a car rather than to be standing below a tree. Why so? Because inside the car, the electric field lines cannot exist because of this effect, and this effect is known as electrostatic shielding. This effect is known as electrostatic shielding, that inside a conductor, the electric field lines cannot exist. And I've given you an example that when you are standing in lightning outside, it is safe to be in homes, or it is better to be in some conductor. It's better to be in car or homes rather than to be in standing outside in open, because the electric field lines can never exist inside the conductor, and this effect is known as electrostatic shielding. But contrary to this, the electric field lines can pass through an insulator. They can always be passing through an insulator. So these 2 points we will be discussing later on when we'll be discussing the capacitance, and you have to keep this thing in mind, that the electric field lines, they do exist inside an insulator, but they do not exist inside a conductor. All right. Now, moving towards another thing, you people must have learned this thing, that the area is a scalar quantity, but sometimes we take area as vector. And the next topic is all about this thing, that how and when we're going to take area as vector. And that's why the topic in itself says area vector. Generally in our lower classes, we have studied this thing, that area is length multiplied by breadth or the side square, and it is a scalar quantity. But when we are dealing with certain quantities in which the orientation of the surface, it defines the quantity, then we take area as vector. Small surface area, it can be represented by a vector. And why so? So this is my surface. If I'm taking a small surface from this surface S, that is my ds, and I can be representing this ds by a vector. This ds can be represented with the help of a vector. And always remember this thing, that the direction of the area vector is always perpendicular to the surface. So this is my surface. So the area vector will always be perpendicular to it. If the surface would have changed its orientation, then also it will always be perpendicular to the surface. Let's take an example and try to understand this concept. When we will be representing the area as vector, we will be representing it as ds with an arrow overhead. So this is ds vector. That is my area vector. ds with an arrow overhead. You can see this thing. So it is my area vector. Always remember, area vector is always perpendicular to the surface which we are dealing. Area vector is always perpendicular to the surface that we are dealing. See this thing. So these are the electric field lines which are coming to this surface. So if I place my surface like this, all the electric field lines will be passing through it. It is similar to be holding a glass pane when the sunlight is coming. So if the sunlight is coming from this direction and I am holding a glass pane over here, all the sunlight will be passing through it. But if I tilt this glass pane like this, if I tilt it like this, only this much amount of sunlight can be passing through it. The sunlight which is earlier passing, this line is earlier passing, but in this case, when I've tilted it up, this line is not passing through it. It means this thing, that the orientation of this surface, it defines that how much amount of sunlight or how much amount of electric field lines can be passing through it. When it is placed over here, the area vector will be perpendicular to it. See, this is the perpendicular part. Area vector is perpendicular to this thing. All right. And when I have tilted it in this direction, then the area vector comes out to be like this. It is always perpendicular to the surface. Draw perpendicular to the surface, you will be getting the area vector. Okay, I'll be just telling you and drawing some of the area vectors in this. See this thing? This is my surface. If my surface is placed like this, so this is my surface. All right. So the area vector will be perpendicular to the surface. It will be perpendicular to this surface like this. It will be perpendicular. If I make my surface like this, it will be perpendicular to it like this. Perpendicular to the surface like this. If I again tilt my area as over here, the area vector surface over here, the area vector perpendicular to will be like this. So area vector is always be perpendicular to the surface. Please note this thing. Since we have learned this thing that area is a vector, now we are in a position to describe a very special quantity that is known as electric flux. So let's define what is electric flux. Electric flux can be defined as the number of electric field lines passing through a given surface. All right. So if 50 number of electric field lines are passing, the flux will be 50. If 100 is passing, the flux will be 100. So whatever be the number of electric field lines passing through a given surface, that can be defined as the electric flux through the
हेलो सर, आवाज नहीं आ रही आपकी।
now am I audible?
यस सर।
Okay, let me explain it again to you. See, the electric flux can be defined as the number of electric field lines that are passing through a given surface, and this is my surface S, the irregular surface. This is the electric field lines they are passing through it. Now I need to calculate that how many number of electric field lines are passing through it. For that, I have to take a small area vector. So I have taken a small area vector ds that is making an angle theta with it. So the formula to calculate the electric flux through this small area ds, it can be written as small electric flux d phi e is equal to, this e is in subscript, the dot product of the electric field and the area vector. So the dot product of the electric field and the area vector gives you the electric flux. And when you expand it out, it will be E ds cos theta. Again, if you need to find the total flux passing through this surface, what we will be doing? We will be integrating the small flux. So the integration of the small flux will be the total flux phi E, and integration of d phi E is the integration of E dot ds, and that is equal to Es cos theta, because when you expand it up, it will be Es cos theta, and this, the integration of the small surface area ds will be S. So it comes out to be E dot S. All right. So this is the formula to calculate the electric flux through any surface. If you need to calculate the electric flux through any surface, what we'll be doing? We'll be finding the electric field and the area vector, and then we are doing the dot product of it and taking the integration of that. Again, I'm telling you, the dot product of electric field with the area vector gives us the small electric flux through a small surface area ds, and in order to calculate the total flux, we'll be integrating the dot product of the electric field and the area vector. Electric flux is a scalar quantity, but it is a property of vector field. See, this is my vector field, electric field is vector, but this electric flux is a scalar quantity because of the number of field lines. So number can be magnitude only, it can be 100, 1000, 10,000, 2000, and so on. All right. Now, the SI unit for the electric field is, electric flux is Newton meter square per coulomb. So Newton per coulomb is the unit of this electric field, and for area we are having unit as meter square. So it will be Newton per coulomb multiplied by meter square, that is Newton meter square per coulomb. For another unit of the electric flux is joule. See, the electric flux, it means the number of electric field lines passing through a given surface. So if we need to find the electric flux through a given surface, what I'll be calculating? I'll be calculating the total number of electric field lines passing through that surface. Okay. And in order to calculate the electric flux, I am having one formula, and that formula says that this is my surface, and from that surface, these are the electric field lines which are passing. I cannot be counting each electric field line. I cannot be counting them all. Why so? Because they are the imaginary lines. What I'll be doing, I must be having some formula. That formula can be calculated if I know the surface area vector. So if I take this surface area, say this is my surface area, very small surface area, the surface area vector will be perpendicular to it. It will be like this. It is always perpendicular to the surface. Now, if I am having this surface area, the surface area vector will be always perpendicular to it. It will be like this, perpendicular to this surface. So many surfaces are there. I can be taking any small portion of the surface for the surface area. So if this is my surface area, the portion that I am taking, electric field will, the direction of the area vector will be perpendicular to this surface. It will be in this direction, that is 90 degrees. Now for this surface, it will be in this direction. All right. And for this, it will be in this direction. So this is the representation that how we can be taking the area vector. Area vector is always perpendicular to the surface. Let's calculate a very small flux through the small area element ds. So this is my area element ds, which is making an angle theta with the electric field. This angle is theta. The angle which the area vector ds, it is making with the electric field, it is theta. So in order to calculate the small electric flux through this surface, what I'll be doing? I am using a formula, and this formula says the dot product of electric field vector and the area vector gives you the electric flux. So in order to calculate the electric flux through the small area, what I'll be doing? I will be making the dot product of the electric field with that small area vector, that is E dot ds. And when you expand it out, it will be E ds cos theta. All right. Now, in order to calculate the electric flux through this complete surface, that is capital S, what I'll be doing? I'll be integrating the small electric flux. So the integration of this small electric flux, it will give me the total electric flux through the whole surface, capital S, and that is the integration of this small d will be the integration of E dot ds. So the total flux phi E is equal to the integration of E dot ds. And when you integrate it out, what is the case? The integration of this surface area, because electric field is uniform, it is constant. So electric field can be taken out of this integral, and the integration of the small surface area will be this complete surface only. That's why in place of this ds vector I have written S, and the dot product of this is Es cos theta. All right. This capital S is because of the integration of this small ds, and the small ds will be integrated in this complete surface area only. All right, that's why the total flux through any surface is equal to the integration of E dot ds, where ds is a very small area of the surface that we are talking about. Again, I'm telling you, the electric flux is a scalar quantity, but it is a property of vector field. Why so? Because electric field is a vector. It is property of electric field that how many number of electric field lines are passing through a given surface. It's a property of vector field, but it is scalar in quantity. Its SI unit is Newton meter square per coulomb, or you can say that is joule meter per coulomb. This joule meter per coulomb, how we got this? We will be dealing with it in the next chapters to come. When we'll be dealing up with the potential difference and all other things, then we will be dealing with this thing, that how we gonna derive this unit. Meanwhile, please keep in mind that the Newton meter square per coulomb is the unit of the electric flux. I do hope it is clear to you. Still, if you are having problem, please ask. We have learned this thing, that the electric flux through a given surface can be given by the formula, the integration of E dot ds, that can also be written as the integration of E ds cos theta. And when you integrate ds, you will be getting the complete surface, that is S. So this is the formula that you people should keep in mind to calculate the electric flux. Now let's take some special cases. So some special cases we need to take. If this theta is 0 to 90 degree, so when the theta lies between 0 to 90 degree, that the phi is what? Es cos theta, and theta is from 0 to 90 degree, and we all know that when the angle is between 0 to 90, the cos of that angle will always be positive and the flux will be positive. If theta is equal to 90 degree, then the flux is 0. Theta is the angle between the area vector and the electric field. If it is 90 degree, then the flux will be 0. And if it is lying between 90 to 180 degree, then the flux will be negative. Please keep these things in mind, which are that when the flux will be positive, when it is negative, and when it is 0. I'm telling you again, theta is the angle between the area vector and the electric field vector. All right. So this is all about the electric flux. Now, what I need to do is, we will be doing one derivation, and that derivation please do along with me in your copies. The derivation says that electric dipole in an uniform electric field. What will happen if we place an electric dipole in an uniform electric field? So please draw this diagram in your copy. Please draw it in your notebook, and then we will be dealing with it. Okay, I'm giving you one diagram to draw. I'm sharing up the screen. Please draw this diagram in your copy, and then we will be doing this derivation, that what will happen when we place an electric dipole in an uniform electric field. All right. So this is some source of positive charge. This is some source of negative charge. The electric field will always move from the positive charge towards the negative charge. And my AB is a dipole which is having minus Q charge at A and plus Q charge at B, and it is placed with an angle theta with the electric field. The dipole movement is from negative to positive, and this direction is making an angle theta with the electric field. Please draw this diagram, and then we'll be doing this derivation, and that will be all for today. Please draw it. I'm giving you 2 minutes to draw. Please draw it, or not 2, only 1 minute to draw. Please draw it. See, this is a dipole AB. It is having two charges. One is minus Q, other one is plus Q. and the direction of this electric dipole movement is from minus charge towards the plus charge. That is, this is the direction of P marked by the arrow. This dipole is making an angle theta with this electric field E. So it is having two charges. One is minus charge. So minus charge will be attracted towards the positive side of the electric field. This is the positive side. It will be experiencing a force that is given by QE. All right. We know that if we place a charge in an electric field, it will experience a force that is the charge multiplied by the electric field. So this minus charge will be experiencing an electric field that is equal to Q into E, and it will be in this direction. And it will be, this plus charge will be experiencing a force that will be in this direction. That is Q into E, because it's a positive charge and it will be moving towards the negative side of the electric field. Since we are having two equal and opposite forces, and these two forces are along different line of action. See this thing? They are along different line of action. So you can see it. This is the line of action. I'm drawing it over here. So this is the line of action for this plus charge force F equal to QE. It is moving along this direction. All right. Or I should be writing it with an arrow. It is in this direction, and we can see the arrow is like this. It is moving like this. All right. This is the direction of force on plus QE charge. In this direction it is acting, and the direction of force for minus QE charge, it is in this direction it is acting. All right or not? Now, when we are having two equal and opposite forces with different line of action, we will be having a torque that we have studied in class 11th itself. The two equal and opposite forces with different line of action, they make a couple. And whenever a couple is acting on a particle, then the particle will tend to rotate. So these are two different forces. They are forming couple. They are equal and opposite forces, and they are forming a couple. And when a couple is acting on a object, then the object tends to rotate. So it will cause the rotation of this dipole. So dipole will tend to rotate like this. So this B will come towards over here, and A will move like this. So whenever something is rotating, it means that torque is acting on the body. All right. And we know the torque can be calculated as, we can calculate the torque. Torque is equal to what? 1 of the force of the couple multiplied by perpendicular distance between their line of action. So this is the torque that we know. The torque can be calculated like this. This torque can be calculated like this, that one of the forces of the couple multiplied by the perpendicular distance between the line of action. So here, this is the line of action of plus QE force, charge on force on plus Q, and this is the line of action for the force on minus Q. So what is the perpendicular distance between them? The perpendicular distance them is BC. All right. So torque can be calculated as, please write tau for the torque, because I'm not able to write the symbol in this one. You should be writing tau, or I should be writing it with the help of a pencil. All right. I'm just doing it. So this is my torque tau. So this tau, it can be calculated as tau is equal to what? Force multiplied by perpendicular distance. And what is the magnitude of force? It is Q into E. And when I multiply it with perpendicular distance, I will be writing over here as BC. All right. Force multiplied by perpendicular distance between the line of action of the force gives us the torque, and torque tau is equal to QE into BC, because BC is the perpendicular distance between the line of action of these two couple. One is this side, other one is this side, and BC is the perpendicular distance. So in triangle, A, B, C. What is the value of sine theta? What is the value of sine theta? Can anyone tell me? What is sine theta? So sine theta, it can be written as what? This is my sine theta. Sine theta is equal to what? It is nothing perpendicular upon hypotenuse, that is BC upon AB, BC upon AB, and this gives us this thing that BC is equal to AB sine theta. All right. So we can write the value of BC as AB sine theta. All right or not? It should not be equal to, it is implies, this implies this thing that BC is equal to AB sine theta. All right, the value of AB we know what it is. The value of AB is equal to what? 2A. That's the length of the dipole. We can easily be putting in this one, and now my torque tau, it becomes QE. It becomes Q into E into 2A sine of theta. Because in place of BC, I can be writing 2A sine theta. All right. 2A sine theta. I can easily be writing it up as 2A sine theta. All right. So torque tau, it becomes what? It becomes torque tau is equal to QE 2A sine theta, and we all know this thing that Q into 2A is what? What is Q into 2A? It is P. So I can be writing the electric dipole moment P, capital E, sine theta. All right. P capital E and sine theta. So this is my sine theta. So PE sine theta. And now, in place of this thing, I can be writing it in the form of vector. That vector tau is equal to what? Please make it a vector. Vector tau is equal to what? It is equal to P, vector P cross vector E, because AB sine theta is equal to A cross B. We know this thing from the cross product of vectors. So this is the derivation for the torque acting on a dipole when it is placed in a uniform electric field. So you can be writing it like this. Okay? Vector. All right. So that is P cross E. So if someone asks you what is the torque acting on a dipole, it must be P cross E. That is the dipole moment having a cross product with the electric field. So this is the torque acting on a dipole when it is placed in a uniform electric field. What is the case if the dipole is placed in non-uniform electric field? So when if it is placed in non-uniform electric field, instead of a torque, or along with the torque, it should be also be acting by a force. So it is having a motion like this. In this case, when it is placed in a uniform electric field, it is having only rotatory motion. But in case when it is placed in non-uniform electric field, it is having a helical motion like this. So the dipole will be moving like this in a helical form. Why so? Because the circular motion because of the presence of the torque, and the linear motion because of the presence of the force, since these two forces are not equal in case of non-uniform electric field. All right. So in case of non-uniform electric field, the dipole will be experiencing a torque and a force, both the things. In case of non-uniform electric field, dipole will experience both torque and force. All right. But in case of uniform electric field, it will only experience torque. This is all about this derivation. If anyone wants to ask something, please ask.
So your voice was not clear.
What you are saying?
Your voice was not clear.
Okay, so in case of non-uniform electric field, what will happen that the dipole will experience a torque as well as a force. So because of the torque, it will move circular in its path, and because of the force, it will move forward. That's why it will be having a helical motion like this. All right. It will be having both torque and force acting on it, and because of the torque, it will be moving in the circular path, and because of the force, it will be moving forward. That's why it will be having a linear path. Helical path. All right. All right or not?
Yes, sir.
Like this, it will be moving. But in case of uniform electric field, it is only acting with the torque. And when torque is acting, it is only having rotatory motion. All right? All right or not? Anyone else want to ask something? Please ask. The next classes to come, we will be dealing up with the Gauss law and the application of the Gauss law. The PDF of that I have just sent you today. Please go through it. No need to write it in the copy till we have a class. Once we will be having a class, then only you should be writing it in the copy after understanding it. All right. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for joining. Thanks a lot.